Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own unique Black Belt leader within. Hey, let me pose a question. Who doesn't want to be a Black Belt? Who doesn't want to become a world-class master of their chosen art, profession, or trade, whatever that might be? Who doesn't want to be seen as an authority figure or an expert or an influencer? Probably all of us at some level. So in today's teaching, I want to show you exactly how you can do that. But I also want to show you what it's going to cost to get you there. Now, we know that everyone wants success, but I can tell you this, not everyone is willing to do what's necessary to experience success, not just once, but to experience it over and over again. So in today's teaching, I want to take you on a journey from white to black belt in the martial arts, but also in life as we examine the test before the title. Now, when we think about the martial arts belt system that we see today, the colored belt system, most people don't know that originated in the 1880s with Jigoro Kano. He was the founder of judo. Now, Kano originally used a white belt and a black belt to distinguish between a student and a teacher. Now, prior to the introduction of a belt system, the older, what we would refer to as samurai arts, simply issued a certificate known as a minkyo, and that denoted rank or license, but no attire was worn to show the rank or the license. So Kano revolutionized martial arts when he introduced the dogi, which is the traditional martial arts uniform today we call a gi, and he introduced the obi, or the belt that we see worn. In the 1930s, judo master Mikino Suki Kawasashi, he introduced colored belts in France. He began to realize that Western students wanted more frequent and immediate recognition as they were progressing as compared to their Japanese counterparts. Now, Gishin Funakoshi, who was the founder of Shotokan, he adapted belt ranking, the colored belt system for karate when he took the art to Japan. And the colored belt progression was later adopted by Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu schools, and today it's the industry standard for signifying rank advancement in nearly every martial art that's taught around the world. Now, while the belt order and the colors differ between the disciplines, the standard progression from white to black belt follows a similar philosophical order. The white belt represents a blank slate, an openness to learn. The yellow and the orange belt represent the first rays of knowledge, like the sun breaking through the darkness. The green represents growth and development. Blue and purple, it represents expansion of understanding and maturing as a martial artist. The brown belt and the red belt represent a refinement of technique and a readiness for higher responsibility. Now, these brown and red belt students may be referred to as senpai or instructors in training. And the black belt, the pinnacle of early training, represents not mastery, but the beginning of a deeper, more meaningful, ongoing stage of technical learning. Now, in traditional Japanese martial arts, a first dan is referred to as a shodan. This is an advanced student or a novice instructor. A second dan, nidan, is an assistant instructor. A third dan, sandan, is a lead instructor. Fourth dan, yandan, is considered an expert. A fifth dan, godan, is considered a master, a shihan, or a renshi. A sixth dan, rokudan, is a senior master. A seventh dan, shichidan, is considered a kiyoshi, an advanced teacher. Now, an eighth dan, which is known as a hashidan, he is considered a hanshi, which means exemplary master, someone who has given their life to the practice of the art. Eighth dan and above are referred to as grandmasters in most arts. A ninth dan, kyudan, is also considered a grandmaster, an impactful leader, and is someone in line to take the reins of a style or a system in the future. And the 10th dan, known as a judan, is considered a soki. Now, this is a title that's reserved for founders or global heads of a style or a system. And in a handful of styles, the 10th dan is also sometimes referred to as the supreme grandmaster. Now, when we think about martial arts, every martial arts student dreams one day of having the opportunity to tie the black belt around the ranks and join the ranks of sensei or teacher of those who have come before them. And for most students, this is the defining moment of their martial arts journey. It's the coveted black belt. Yet only 1% of the people who start the journey of martial arts cross the finish line to becoming a shodan. Now, interesting, only around 5% of the U.S. population trains in martial arts. So that means 1/2 of 1% of those who actually start the journey in the United States actually complete it. That is a very small number. You know, everybody wants the title, but most people don't want to do what is required to earn it. And that's where I want to lean in for the next few minutes. Because here's what I've seen as a former school owner of multiple schools and now president of the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame. Eager students sign up for class and they can't wait to get started. They don their gi, they tie their white belt around their waist, and they show up at class, and then the training begins. Well, at least at first, they diligently begin to learn the stances, the punches, the blocks, the kicks, all the movements required to earn their yellow belt. They want to get promoted because they know that with the promotion comes recognition. It comes the applause of their peers. They get a sense of accomplishment and a personal confirmation that they are capable of doing and becoming more. But there's only one thing standing in the way of that promotion, and that is testing. So the students must perform before a panel of black belt instructors who are going to critique every move they make as these students nervously demonstrate what they've been learning in class. I can tell you from personal experience, the stress is intense, the pressure is real, and when an instructor asks for a technique or a form to be shown again, the student begins to fear the worst. I'm going to fail. Well, I can tell you this, most students, the vast majority, they give it their all. Yeah, some are going to struggle, and yes, some are going to make mistakes, and some are going to have to repeat punches and kicks and blocks and stance and movements multiple times to get it right. But the testing panel does one thing. They are pushing the student beyond what that student may believe they're capable of doing because they want to help that student see that more and better is possible. They want to pull out of them a belief in themselves they may not yet see. And then the scores are tabulated. The black belt panel confers, the announcements are made, and the students who were successful, they get to step forward and receive their promotion. They're presented with a certificate and their next colored belt. They've been promoted to the next rank. Well, in life, we all want the promotion. And I can tell you, having been promoted at many times in my life, it feels great. But without a test, without an assessment, ladies and gentlemen, there is no promotion. And nobody wants to talk about the nervousness, the struggle that waits, the demands that are going to be placed on your mind, your body, and the emotions as you prepare. Yes, testing is work, but testing serves to validate the preparation that you and I have put forth to be promoted. So the test is what makes the promotion meaningful. It's ultimately in the martial arts what leads to the title of Senpai, Sensei, Shihan, Renshi, Hanshi, or Soki. But without testing, a belt is nothing more than a decoration. Without testing, a rank becomes meaningless. And without testing, advancement loses its value. Now, this very same principle applies to leadership, to business, to relationships, and to life. You know, we all want advancement, but there are very few of us who really want to embrace that difficult process that's required and in some cases demanded to earn it. Now, in martial arts, every promotion begins with a test. It's a requirement for advancement. And the same is true in life. Every level of growth that we experience begins exactly the same way. Every stage of life comes with a test. And every test is designed to do one thing, to prepare you for the next level of growth. So why can't we just be promoted directly to black belt? Why do we have to spend years of difficult, sometimes monotonous training and preparation? Why can't we just skip all the colored belts and go straight from white to black? Why does life always test us before it promotes us? Here's what I can tell you. First, testing measures progress. You know, when we think about the example of martial arts, a white belt test in martial arts, it's not about perfection. It's about measuring the progress from when they started. It's about demonstrating the fundamentals, the basic stances, the punches, the kicks, the blocks, and the movements, as those students are starting to build muscle memory around those things. But it's also about cultivating discipline and persistence and dedication. Now, having sat on a testing panel, nobody expects mastery of a white belt. The bigger question is this: are you learning? Are you improving? Are you committed to continuing the journey? And the same principle holds true in business and in life. In business, are you learning systems and processes? Are you able to improve your customer service? When it comes to personal growth, are you learning habits? Are you developing discipline? Are you improving your focus? You got to remember, testing measures progress, not perfection. But there's this thing called procrastination that often shows up because many people believe they can't get started until anything and everything is perfect. Well, I've got a news alert for you. It's never going to be perfect, so it's important to get started anyway. Remember, perfection isn't the standard. Progress is the standard. And besides, perfectionism is a myth. No matter how good you are, there's always room for improvement. Now, the second thing testing does is it validates learning. As students advance in the dojo, our expectation of that student increases. With each belt progression, the student must demonstrate knowledge, application, understanding, and they must be able to execute what they've learned. Lessons begin to move beyond just getting information and shifting to transformation. And as the student's skill level rises, so does their confidence. They're truly becoming a black belt in the making. And the same is true for you and I in our personal growth journey. You can study leadership, you can read the books, you can listen to podcasts, you can attend the seminars and the webinars, you can go to conferences, and you can even work with a coach or a mentor. But eventually, life is going to ask you a very pointed question, and it's a question only you can answer. Can you truly lead yourself? And are you capable of effectively leading other people? Testing in business works the same way, and it asks the very same question. How you deal with a difficult employee, an unhappy customer, or how you motivate a team that keep missing deadlines reveals how well you're leading. You got to remember, leadership isn't proven in the classroom. It's proven as your leadership is tested in the moment. So testing validates learning. And any martial arts student will tell you the test doesn't create competence. It only reveals the competence that's already there. Testing puts preparation on display, and it shines a light on learning. Now, by the time a student reaches brown belt, they enter what we call the proving ground. This is where technical skill and sound technique aren't just expected, they're demanded. We want to see competency at this level increase dramatically. Remember, instructors are watching the student not just to evaluate their skill, their technique, or their character. They're watching that student to see if they are truly capable of doing and becoming more. Now, the third thing testing does is it provides potential, and that potential becomes visible under pressure. Now, at this level of training, confidence and belief have already become ingrained through relentless testing and challenges along the way. Brown belt and red belt students have put in the time. They've pushed their mind and bodies beyond what they believe they were capable of doing, as each test has revealed even more potential. Well, here's what I'm here to tell you. In life, growth leaves evidence. It leaves clues. And when that growth is tested, it's a recognition of that growth that's already taken place in our lives. And by the time a student in martial arts has been through the formal testing process at least 6 times, they've come to realize testing is a daily occurrence that happens on the mat. Each day is a proving ground, a learning opportunity, and a leadership opportunity as well. And the same holds true for you and I. Every single day, life has a lesson it wants to teach us. And that test is there to validate what you've already learned and what you know. It's your proving ground where you have an opportunity to demonstrate to yourself and others who are watching that the preparation you've gone through is working, and you are actually becoming a better version of who you are and what you do than when you first got started. And then at some point comes the title. In martial arts, for the student, having endured years of struggle and countless hours of preparation and the relentless commitment to progress, that student receives a black belt after an exhaustive, comprehensive exam before a high dan panel. And with that, that student earns the coveted title of sensei. So, having demonstrated mastery in the basics, that student has been rewarded for persistence. And now the real training gets to begin. So, black belt isn't graduation day. It's more than that. It's an opportunity to step into the next level. The real journey has an opportunity to begin. It's more than graduation, it's advancement to what's next. So remember, the test precedes the title, but with every title comes more obligation, more responsibility, and greater expectations. The training's not over. It's only now just beginning because the basics now have to be woven into intricate, detailed, technical patterns. Knowledge begins to transform into wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge, and the sphere of training begins to increase to a much more intensive level. And the same is true in life as it is in martial arts. That same pattern shows up in personal growth, in leadership, in entrepreneurship, in marriage and parenting, and in every other aspect of our lives. Preparation always precedes testing, and testing precedes promotion. And with any promotion comes more preparation and more testing along the way so that promotion can continue. You got to remember, the higher you rise, the more responsibility you're going to carry, the more influence you're going to wield, and the more accountability you're going to face. So with each belt, with each level of advancement, it brings with it new tests and new opportunities for promotion, but a greater demand to continue the preparation. Remember, the test precedes the title. Now, somewhere between green belt and brown belt, a martial arts student begins to realize that this is a perpetual journey of learning, growing, and maturing. Because to the true martial artist, as I've said many times, there is no finish line. To advance from first dan to second dan requires on average 2 additional years of training. To go from second degree to third degree, an additional 3 years of training. From third dan to fourth dan, an additional 4 years of training. So to achieve eighth dan status, it takes on average 35 to 40 years of continuous training. Now that, for most people, is a lifetime of training. So you see, testing doesn't end with the next rank advancement or the next promotion in life. In fact, as we go through life and as we go through this process, the testing is going to become harder. It's going to be more difficult because more is going to be expected and demanded of you and I. There's always more to learn, there's always more to remember, and there's always more to demonstrate with each subsequent exam. Kaizen, continuous perpetual improvement. It becomes a lifestyle, not just for the true martial artist, but for any black belt leader in life. You know, when we think about life, it works the same way as the dojo. It doesn't stop testing you after you achieve some level of success. In fact, the title you've earned now demands more of you than was demanded before the promotion. Employees become supervisors, more is required. Supervisors become managers. Obligations, responsibilities, they increase. Managers become department heads, and with that promotion comes even greater demands and obligations and consequences when things go wrong. You know, entrepreneurs become business owners become employers, employers become industry leaders, but all the while, that entrepreneur is still learning, still growing, still improving, and still being continually tested all along the way. And with more authority comes more responsibility, and the leadership demands, both personal and professional, dramatically increase as we move up that production ladder. Now, with each promotion comes greater expectations, greater pressure, greater opportunity, and greater potential consequences if things go bad. The quality of preparation, get this, that got you to where you are is insufficient to get you to where you need to go next. Now, life's sequence of promotion always follows a similar pattern. First, you're going to prepare, and then you're going to be tested. And if you pass the test, you get promoted. And then the sequence resets and it again. It's never promotion and then the test. The test always precedes promotion, and preparation precedes the test. We see this in athletics, in the military, in business, and in life. We're not given responsibility until someone sees that we've demonstrated the capacity and that we're ready. We don't put a teacher in front of students. We don't put a pilot in the cockpit of an airplane, and we don't put a doctor in the operating room until they've been tested. Until they show some level of competency and the ability to perform, preparation and testing continue. Remember, the title follows the trial. Recognition follows the results. Promotion follows the proof. But today we live in a world of self-promotion. We can go on social media and claim to be anything. People can claim expertise. They can create titles. They can buy followers, and they can even manufacture an appearance. But I'm here to tell you this. True advancements can't be self-awarded. Anybody can wear a black belt. You can buy one online, but a true black belt possesses the skills, the mindset, and the ability to be able to perform like a black belt when it truly counts. Mark Sanborn once said that you don't need a title to be a leader. And I agree with that statement. But in order to earn a title, you got to be able to lead. And that only happens when you continuously prepare yourself, when you're continually tested and your ability is proven and validated by others. Self-promotion never replaces real promotion. In life, every belt, every advancement is going to require some sacrifice. Advancement's going to cost you something. There's time involved. There's discipline to be developed. There's repetition to be endured. There's failure to experience and learn from. There's patience to cultivate, and there's humility to embrace. And while we all admire success, very few people admire the sacrifice that was required to create it. So let me ask you this. Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to endure the preparation and the testing in order to earn the title? Well, let me leave you with this. In martial arts, the belt itself is never the achievement. It's only a symbol of the achievement. It is a visual reminder when you look in the mirror that your preparation was seen and it's been recognized. It's a reminder to you every time you tie that belt around your waist that you've put in the time. You've learned what needed to be learned. You've developed the competencies that have made you better. And along the way, you've discovered that you're capable of doing and becoming more. Yes, the struggle matters. Yes, the sacrifice matters. They are both real. Growth matters, and it is important if you want to continue to be promoted. A promotion only recognizes what has already happened in your life. So don't ask yourself, when's the next promotion coming? It's going to come when you're prepared. Don't ask yourself whether or not you passed the test, and don't focus on the belt that you want to tie around your waist. Focus instead on this: becoming the person worthy of wearing the belt or carrying the promotion. You got to be worthy of wearing that belt or carrying that promotion, or it's useless. Remember, in martial arts, in leadership, in business, and in life, testing always precedes promotion. Testing always comes before the title. So as we wrap up, my question to you is this: what rank are you preparing for next? And what are you doing to get ready? I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.